Welcome back to Heritage and Hope Ministries. I'm your host, Alex. We're bringing you another Sunday Law update. And since our last update, a lot has happened around the world that deserves careful attention. I'm actually joined by my brother, James, as always here, as well as our associate, Dr. Brian Hustad, and also Michael Godwin as well. And then as well from Sanctuary Door Ministry, we're pleased to have Andrew Bakitschke joining us remotely. Andrew co-hosts the Truth Project with Matthew Shanchay. And Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before I dive in, I just wanted to say, since our last couple videos, I really wanted to thank those of you out there who supported this ministry. We made the announcement a couple videos ago that we've actually turned off advertisements for this channel, because we're letting God lead, and we don't want any advertisements playing on Sabbath distracting viewers from listening to this content. So we've had some people that have reached out and been willing to donate to our cause, and I just wanted to thank you guys so much for doing that. It means the world to us, and it really helps further this cause. But, guys, there's been a lot that has been going on. We actually just had entered, another armed conflict? Or is that just saying it too mildly? With the Iran offensive that took place. But before we kind of jumped into that, I kind of wanted to see what else has been going on. James, what have we seen that has been kind of pushing us towards this narrative?
Well, wars and rumors of wars, but we've also had a State of the Union address here recently from Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at some of the things that were said there. It's kind of interesting. Here we are kicking off all these wars, but at the same time, the narrative is being sold that we're entering a golden age.
This July 4th, we will mark 2.5 centuries of liberty and triumph, progress and freedom in the most incredible and exceptional nation ever to exist on the face of the earth. And you've seen nothing yet. We're going to do better and better and better. This is the golden age of America. The golden age of America is upon us. The revolution that began in 1776 has not ended. It still continues because the flame of liberty and independence still burns in the heart of every American patriot. And our future will be bigger, better, brighter, bolder, and more glorious than ever before. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Do you guys think we're entering a golden age? I mean, that to me, that sounds like something very prophetic in the sense of, if we look at Daniel in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, right? A golden age didn't exactly bode well for religious freedom in their day. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes.
But listen to his first congressional address here with his in his second term. This was March 4, 2025. Take a listen to kind of a replay of that.
The golden age of America begins right now. America is back. 6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future, because the golden age of America has only just begun. It will be like nothing that has ever been seen before. You're the first graduating class of the golden age of America. We're in the golden age. You watch. This is the golden age. We've done things that nobody thought possible. 100 days yesterday. The golden age of America is upon us. This is a golden age. The golden age of America is upon us. We are in the golden age. It's going to be a period of time the likes of which I don't think this country has ever experienced before.
The Trump economic golden age is full steam ahead. America is back.
2025 is setting the table, but the banquet's going to be in 2026.
This is the golden age.
My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future, because the golden age of America has only just begun.
Two chapters of the same story, from the Golden Arches to the Golden Age.
This administration's moving at political light speed.
This will be America's new golden age.
Wow.
You know, if I had to say that, you know, his slogan for his first term, like 2016, it was "Make America Great Again," right? And he carried that into the second term, but he's using the golden age so much, it almost feels like his new slogan for like his second term is the golden age. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, that's kind of how he's using it. It's being used so much. I mean, you saw just how many times. It's not just like one errant comment.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, he also campaigned as the president of peace, and we've seen how that has turned out, especially this year. But, you know, when I hear the golden age, I can't help but think of the age of Aquarius. You know, from a spiritualism standpoint, the New Age has been talking about the age of Aquarius and tied into 2025 and the externalization of the hierarchy for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting if we go back in time. This was talked a little bit about by Roger Morneau. I was wondering if you guys had seen this clip here. Let's take a look.
Roger, when I was a teenager back in the 1970s, I remember a song that came out talking about the age of Aquarius. And since then, we've seen the development of the New Age. And I wondered if back when you were involved in spirit worship, if they talked about New Age at all.
Oh, yes. It was a big thing that was coming up. One of the major deceptions of the last days. And the priest told us, we talked quite a while, and then he said, could I have a little bit more of your time? I want to do something very fascinating. He says, the grain plain, the master's grain plain, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, you know, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of spirits. And he said, it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grand plan is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it. And he went on saying that they will claim to have out-of-body experiences. Are you familiar with out-of-body experiences?
I've read about them.
In other words, so there's some persons are supposed to be able to, you know, they believe in their immortal soul.
Astral projection.
Yes, right. Goes into different parts of the world and sees things and come back, and then they write all about it. You know.
I've heard of that.
So, due to the fact that the millions of the earth people believe in people having an immortal soul, it has to be readily accepted when the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people of the land, you see.
Now, what is a trance medium?
It's a channeler today.
What is known today as a channeler?
Channeler, yeah. Okay. Shirley MacLaine's experience of getting involved with Spiritism and with the supposed inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies, I taped the whole thing. It's 3 hours.
And you were hearing the fulfillment of what this high priest had said 45 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot to unpack there.
Well, I mean, it's clear that everything is very planned out. You know, everything is very organized and everything's very planned out. It's under supernatural direction. And men are really just carrying out something that's been planned for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And if you know, this golden age phrase that Trump is repeating a lot, it's not just him that's parroting this, it's many other people. And occultists look back to a time before the flood with the antediluvians, and they refer to that as actually the golden age. That is actually the true golden age that they're really referring to, that they want to reestablish on this earth again, when demonic presences or these spirits or these demons actually worked with men. And this is something that happened after the fall of the Garden of Eden up until the time of the flood. And so that is a time of the golden age in occult history, and that's what they're trying to bring about on this earth. So this idea of the manifestations of spirits and you know, aliens coming and all this really is kind of bringing us back to the beginning again of what the world was like before the flood.
Well, you know, of course, the demons would think that the one time in Earth's history that was the golden age is when they had the entire world pretty much duped except 8 people.
Right.
Pretty much, yeah. That's exactly it. And the Luciferians, the Lucius Trust meeting took place last year on the Truth Project. We covered that episode. And that was their last meeting. That was their last meeting to prepare before the next phase, before the next steps would come that would introduce, to be the final steps before, the coming of the cosmic Christ, or, Lucifer coming as Christ. So we're well underway now, and I believe in those plans that they were making. We're definitely on the road.
Do you guys see a tie into this golden age or age of Aquarius, which I think ties into like 1,000-year reign? It just makes me think of the Christian nationalists who are primed with their post-millennial viewpoint.
Yeah, so, it's interesting that Roger Morneau talked about that, but also Heritage Foundation's been pushing this narrative of a golden age as well. They actually ran this ad here recently talking about it and what they hope to see happen.
The golden age is a choice. It's a choice to prioritize families and empower local communities.
A choice to find dignity in prosperous and honorable work.
A choice to prioritize our nation's safety, protecting our homeland and standing strong against foreign threats.
A choice to cherish the greatest gift we've been given.
Waking up every day an American citizen.
Our heritage is our future.
It flows from our founding fathers.
Through our grandparents.
Through our parents.
Through us.
To future generations.
Our heritage is our future.
The golden age is a choice.
Let's choose well.
That's interesting, because that's also sin. Sin is also a choice, so the golden age is a choice. The sin is also a choice too. It's the rebellion, it's the transgression of the law.
But, this is the thing, is that you're having books written about this. You're having this really pushed. I was talking with a patient of mine, and I was in his room just talking to him, and I saw a book laying on his bed, and I just kind of looked over and glanced at it, and it said The Coming Golden Age by Dr. David Jeremiah, New York Times bestselling author, 31 Ways to be Kingdom Ready. And I asked him, I said, hey, you're reading, what's that book about? And he said, oh, it's about the coming age of Christ. And he's like, I've already read it once, and I'm on my way back through it, reading it again. And so this is a common theme that you're seeing in society. It's not just like a fringe movement that's pushing this. It's a common theme that you're seeing pushed kind of across evangelical Christendom, I would say.
You think the Bible illustrates a golden age at the end of time?
Not the way I read it.
Not the way I read it either. Very clearly.
Not on this world, certainly.
No, not on this world.
Exactly.
So this next slide here was something I think that I want to say the first persons who I had seen do this, I think, was Matthew Shanshay and Andrew Bogitsky, maybe.
Yeah.
Drawing some parallels between 1888 and today. So maybe, I think I've added a few here at the bottom, specifically about the 19th Amendment and...
We're always coming up with new ones here because there's so many parallels.
I know, but the seizure of the Philippines and maybe the seizure of Greenland, we'll see what happens there. But
okay, I was looking at this, James, and you're missing one, though. Okay, because I was going through the whole list here. You're missing the Asiatic flu that took place, and then the COVID-19 pandemic. They were both upper respiratory infections. But yeah, I mean, so many parallels.
Andrew, when did you guys make the connection on this, all of these?
Yeah, no, actually, that was something that I had actually put in one of my earliest sermons when I started to speak. I was actually doing a Righteousness by Faith series that was based on W.W. Prescott's series from 1893, I think. And as I was reading his material, I found that in there was this introduction that was just showing these parallels of what happened in the Golden Age as to what it's supposed to be like at the end of time as far as regards to the Sunday law. Because when you come to 1888 and that time period there, you know that there was a national Sunday law that was in progress. And then it just basically gave this history there. And I started to do more studying. I did more online searching. I did more historical research. And that's actually what I presented with Matthew Shanshay in that episode was something I had in a sermon, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years prior to that I just did once or so, and I didn't really come back to it until we're in this time right now. And I said, hey, you know what? There's all these amazing parallels that are taking place right now. And so it was actually from studying Righteousness by Faith, from finding out what happened in 1888 that I saw, historically, what was it like back then? And I was fascinated by that, because it really is sort of like it's kind of like the introduction of modern life today is what they had back then, electric streetcars, the telephone, all these inventions that took place, electrified cities, nightlife, took off, sports becoming national pastime. These are all amazing things that we all kind of like think it's just been going on forever, but it actually had its beginning around the time of the first Sunday law. So I thought that was fascinating. So, and we've come full circle.
Well, it's fascinating reading, for example, the American Sentinel, and seeing over and over and over discussions of the Golden Age. And just look at some of these quotes, for example. The outlook shows us that they have gone to work to fulfill the prophecy themselves by earthly agencies, such as human wisdom always selects: legislation, ballot, politics, and even conquest. Hegseth.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to make the world good and usher in the Golden Age by vote, by grasping political power, and by the forcible extension on the earth of the blessings of American Christian civilization. Well, if that doesn't sound prophetic today. This malignant spirit allures souls along forbidden paths to chase the will-o'-the-wisp of a supposed golden age in order to overwhelm them at last in the morass of destruction and death. Christ's kingdom is not of this world, and he who in the name of Christ would pose as its king is an impostor and a usurper.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of usurpation and pride, it's fascinating here to see Don Colossus, which is a 15-foot tall statue of Donald Trump mounted on a 7,000-pound pedestal with a thick layer of gold leaf. And, they're gilding Donald Trump. I mean...
Yeah, this was actually a group of cryptocurrency investors, and they were backing basically a meme coin in hopes that this statue would be installed, I think, at one of his golf courses. And so they have this, huge bronze effigy, and then they have gilt all over it. But it actually hasn't been installed yet because there was a dispute over pay. It was like the people that, like the sculptor or something, was still owed like $90,000 or something like that. And so it's basically sitting there complete, but it hasn't been fully paid for yet. But, we've talked about the Golden Age previously, but when you actually have a 15-foot tall gold statue, it's like, does this not ring any bells to Daniel chapter 3?
Oh, exactly what I was thinking. I mean, it's uncanny.
Come on.
I think if people are sleeping at this point, if people that have heard this message, that have known this message, grown up with this message, there has been so much evidence. If you're not waking up now, I think you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So Revelation 13:14 speaks about the second beast that deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had a wound by a sword and did live. Now, it's very interesting, one of the statements that we heard from our president.
And when God needs a nation to work his miracles, he knows exactly who to ask. For our destiny is written by the hand of providence, and these first 250 years were just the beginning.
We're not saying that Trump is the second beast. We're saying the United States of America is the second beast.
Mm-hmm.
And the United States of America will no doubt be involved in making an image to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to me to see how world leaders are talking now about a return to Roman values.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look.
If we wish to emerge from our dark present, we must once again draw inspiration from Greek philosophy, embrace Roman law, and return to Judeo-Christian values, thereby enabling us to save the West. In this same place in 2024, I stated that the West was in danger as a result of having embraced increasing doses of socialism in its most hypocritical form, which is wokeism. In turn, in 2025, I explained the mental parasites sown by the left in humanity. However, 2026 is the year in which I bring you good news. The world has begun to awaken. The best proof of this is what is happening in the Americas with the rebirth of the ideas of liberty. Therefore, the Americas will be the beacon of light that will once again illuminate the entire West, thereby repaying the civilizational debt with expressions of gratitude towards the foundations in Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Judeo-Christian values. We have a better future ahead, but that better future exists only if we return to the roots of the West, which means returning to the ideas of liberty. May God bless the West. May the forces of heaven be with us, and long live freedom.
What do you guys think of his statements there about the United States? Basically, it's talking about it mirroring Rome. I mean,
and Greek philosophy.
Yeah,
I mean, because that goes together with Christianity,
right?
Yeah, and this guy is basically like the Trump of South America. Is essentially what he's known as, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
He was very controversial when he came on the scene, but. You know, there's this next clip here that this person right here, she's talking about Christian nationalism and the separation between church and state. And what's interesting is this particular video, it got like 400,000 views. So there's a lot of people that saw this. And she's basically highlighting that Trump is tearing down separation of church and state. Now, she's not coming at it from a Seventh-day Adventist perspective. She's just coming at it. So it's like, if other people can see that separation of church and state is being eroded, where are we in the stream of time then? Yeah. Let's go ahead and play this.
The separation of church and state was created to prevent governments from picking religions and religions from picking governments. But on National Prayer Day, the President of the United States said something no predecessor ever would.
They say separation between church and state, they told me. I said, all right, let's forget about that for one time.
The words separation of church and state aren't actually in the Constitution. They come from an 1802 Thomas Jefferson letter, who called for a, quote, eternal separation between church and state. But over time, the courts interpreting the First Amendment have made it the law of the land. Under Trump, however, we have seen that wall systematically eroded in favor of a particular brand of Christian nationalism. Let's start with the head of the White House Faith Office, Pastor Paula White-Cain. When it became clear Trump was losing the 2020 election, she appeared on a live-streamed prayer service and called on literal angels to secure his re-election.
Angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Hamanda aka ata raka teda baka sanda ata ambo.
Then there's Attorney General Pam Bondi chairing the task force to, quote, eradicate anti-Christian bias, unquote, in a country where 87% of Congress identifies as Christian. Or Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who has pushed for the 10 Commandments in public schools while chairing the Religious Liberty Commission. It's even in the military. Last week, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth invited a self-described Christian nationalist pastor to lead a prayer service at the Pentagon. A pastor who has publicly advocated for repealing women's right to vote, and in his 1996 book argued that slavery promoted, quote, affection between the races, unquote, in the South. To be clear, Christian nationalism is not Christianity. Christian nationalism is the belief that America was founded as a fundamentally Christian nation and should be governed as such. A stunning new poll this week found that as many as 1 in 3 Americans are either adherents or sympathizers with Christian nationalism. Among Republicans, that number jumps to more than half. Thomas Jefferson wrote his separation of church and state letter in 1802 because he understood something fundamental. The wall he described wasn't built to keep faith out of America. It was built to keep the government from deciding whose faith counts.
You know, this next slide right here is from the study where they were kind of looking at support for Christian nationalism, adherents versus sympathizers. And if you look at, there's a good portion of people that are fairly in favor of it. So, I mean, I really think that we're going to see a lot more of a push in that regard. There's another video here actually by Stephen Wolfe. Now, he's the author of The Case for Christian Nationalism, and he was actually discussing how Christian nationalism is being studied by the Presbyterian Church in America. And they came out, they're coming out with a study about it, about Christian nationalism. The PCA is coming out with a study about Christian nationalism. And so in this video clip, he's kind of hypothesizing, basically, about what is this study going to actually say? What is it actually going to have as a result? And listen to how he thinks this report is going to go.
I think they're going to say you can be a secularist, you can be establishmentarian, maybe you can suppress blasphemy, you can believe in Christian nations, Christian laws, Sabbath laws, you can believe all that stuff. So it's going to be very, very extensive like that. Now, you might think, oh, great. So now the PCA is allowing you to be, I don't know, a Christian nationalist perhaps in some sense, or it's allowing you to be establishmentarian. Great, check the box. Great, I'm in. I think, again, that's what they're going to do. But that's a matter of principle. So this is what we have to understand. When people receive this report, what I expect, again, the extensive permissibility of different understandings of political theory, political theology, you can be postmillennial, all this stuff. They're going to say that. So they're going to be strong in principle. That is, you can hold the strong principled view. But what I expect, though, is that they're going to undercut the means. Effectively, when these laws are unnecessary because everyone is already doing these things, oh, then you can come in, then you can have the Christian nation, the Christian laws, the Sabbath, the blue laws, the blasphemy, you can have all that. So you undercut the means. So we can't get sort of tricked into thinking that it's actually moved the sort of ball forward by saying that they're allowing you to be establishmentarian. There's already plenty of people in the PCA who are establishmentarian. In any sort of situation, there are means available by which you can affirm the principle. Okay, so in our context now, in certain places, they could establish Sabbath laws. In certain states, they could establish blasphemy laws. I know the Constitution, all that, but they can do that with support of the people. They don't do it. Those are means to the end they're not actually using. Things are available to different governing authorities in different places.
So what do you guys think about what he's saying here?
Well, we know he's not alone. There's a lot of people that think similarly, but
what does he mean though? What is he talking about there?
Well, to me, it sounds like the PCA, although, of course, last year they came out with a report where they strongly rejected certain aspects of Christian nationalism. To me, it sounds like they're permissive and maybe feeling some pressure, perhaps going to open up a little bit and allow some aspects of it.
What were y'all's takes on it?
I can give you a little, just a story from up here. I mean, this is probably around the same time that I was actually kind of working on the Gilded Age information. I would say I was working as a Bible worker very early on, doing door to door up here in Canada. This is where I'm based at the time, and we had to come up with a kind of a thing that we'd say at the door to try to get their interest because we're passing out the Great Controversy and looking for Bible studies. So we would talk about Trump. This is during Trump's first term. And we would talk about Trump, and Canadians and me, obviously they cannot vote in our elections, but they are very fascinated with our politics. I mean, people really pay attention north of the border to what's happening in the States. And we get to the point where we talk about a Sunday law. What do you think about a national Sunday law? And you'd be surprised because Canada is very secular. No one would mistake Canada for being a Christian nation at all. It's very different. And it's very hard up here actually to try to get through to people. But amazingly enough, when we talked about a Sunday law and we talked about those things, I was surprised by at least 50% or more actually thought it was not a bad idea.
Wow.
This is in Canada.
You know what I think he's like the take that I get from what Stephen Wolfe is saying here is he's basically saying the PCA is going to soft pedal it.
Yeah.
They're going to kind of soft pedal Christian nationalism. It's like, yeah, that's okay. And he's essentially advocating for, no, we need to go further. That's kind of how I took him.
Well, they're going to take it and run with it. And if the PCA has no direct response to it, it basically gives them opportunity to move forward and advocate for it even further. And they're going to push.
Right.
I mean, he's already said that all you need is a strong-willed minority. to shape public policy. We've had those clips before.
You actually don't need like a majority support of the population. You just need a strong-willed minority. And then that ruling class can shape the imagination of the majority. There's a lot of people who will just kind of shift with the imagination set by the people, the ruling class.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it was back in 1888, leading up to 1880. It was exactly what you just said, James. It was a strong minority of activists that really pushed the Sunday law to the point where, you know, the Blair bill was being discussed. I mean, it really, truly was a minority that got it to that place. And people don't realize, they think that the whole world is going to be, you know, necessarily converted to it. No, it won't begin like that. I mean, you can see the same thing with activism and other social issues of which, you know, the alphabet becomes a part of. It's a small minority of people that really push that agenda. And a lot of people are very apathetic and just kind of go along with it, and just, you know, things happen.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this next clip here of a couple more pastors discussing what is permissible.
Dabney's point is the government must promote natural religion, not supernatural religion. So Dabney still believes the government has to enforce monotheism. It must punish blasphemy. It must punish what I say.
They were all for blue laws.
They are all for Sabbath laws. Yeah. And he says this is necessary because the government has to support and protect natural religion. So Dabney is not doing a temporal / spiritual or physical versus religious. He's doing a natural religion versus supernatural religion. So,
so the permissible government is to care for people comprehensively, which would not negate their souls, their spiritual selves. Right.
You know, from their perspective, the government has a role here to do this. Now, drum roll. We've been saying this for a very long time. We have long anticipated a national Sunday law, and it's fascinating to watch CBN now discuss the Heritage Report here. Let's take a look at this video here, coming out January 28th, 2026.
A uniform day of rest for American workers is also on the list, an idea that would build upon blue laws that limit alcohol sales in some states.
We recognize that one of the most important aspects of being human is not only working hard and working diligently, but having a day set apart where you can unplug from the regular grind of the work week and simply be present to rest, to be with your family, to worship if you're a religious person, and to really reconnect with yourself and with your values.
Waters hopes the federal government will seriously consider these recommendations as a way to refocus politics around saving and supporting the American family.
There is simply no greater good to invest in, and that should be our top priority.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
You know, when I listen to this kind of talk that's being pushed, because it's coming out more openly now. If you're watching for it, you can see it. Pretty soon, if you're not watching it for it, you're going to see it. And I was listening. I often like to do this. I like to listen to the last chapters of The Great Controversy, and on audiobook. And I was drawn to, actually, Michael, you and I were discussing, I believe, chapter 38, The Final Warning. And I found this quote here: "Heretofore, those who presented the truths of the third angel's message have often been regarded as mere alarmists. Their predictions that religious intolerance would gain control in the United States, that church and state would unite to persecute those who keep the commandments of God, have been pronounced groundless and absurd. It has been confidently declared that this land could never become other than what it has been, the defender of religious freedom. But as the question of enforcing Sunday observance is widely agitated, the event so long doubted and disbelieved is seen to be approaching, and the third message will produce an effect which it could not have had before." Where are we in the stream of time? We're right here. And so, you know, I look at this and I'm like, number one, The Great Controversy is fantastic, which we need to be getting this book out there more. And, you know, we've actually talked about it here on this channel before, but I think one of the best ways to do that is to get some of the Great Controversy sharing cards that we've highlighted here on this channel before. where you can just take them, put it in your wallet, and if you run across somebody, you just give them the card, and it has a QR code that they can scan on the back, and they can get an audiobook version or watch videos about the Great Controversy or get a free copy of it. So I think that's a great option. But when we have the truth coming out in the news like this, vindicating our position, we have to capitalize on it, because it says the third angel's message, the third message will produce an effect which it could not have had before. So this coming out publicly like this is giving strength to our message.
Yep.
And it's going to continue.
We go from conspiracy theorists to factualists.
Yes.
Because it's happening right around us.
Right.
Yep.
And so
only as strong as we're willing to actually give the message.
Right.
That's the
well,
the
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, we owe it to our neighbors and colleagues, even if it seems crazy, to go and tell them, hey, I'm going to tell you something. And it may sound crazy right now, but I want you to just stash it away in your mental vault. And when it finally happens, be like, okay, tell me more.
Yep.
I just have to tell you one thing. A national Sunday law is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be like, what? What's a national Sunday law? And you're like, enforced worship on Sunday. That is coming. And they're going to be like, no, it's not. We have separation of church and state. Just be like, okay, I know it sounds crazy, just stash it away. Because when it finally does, you can ring that person up and be like,
and what a seed you planted.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we actually see in this quote here the actual purpose God gives us prophecy for, and that is that we were speaking earlier today, and we were talking about all these things that are happening around the world, and how unprepared we are. We for many years we've known that things are going to transpire that are going to show us very soon that we're nearing the end. COVID comes, everybody's caught off guard, and then COVID goes and everybody's still off guard. The next thing comes along, we're like, oh, we're off guard again. We're always on the back foot. But if we actually look at this quote, it shows us that God's purpose for prophecy is to wake us up.
Yeah.
That's actually the result that you want to have when you see something coming that has been prophesied of. The result that God is intending is for you to say, "Whoa, what is going on here?" and to wake up.
Yes.
Because that's what happens with the 10 virgins, right? It happens when the loud cry comes, or the midnight cry, rather. Behold, the bridegroom cometh. That's when they wake up. So for us who have found ourselves again on the back foot over and over again, and for those who are watching in the same boat, it's actually an encouragement. If we have that effect, if it has that effect on us, that is the intention of prophecy.
Yeah, wake up and strengthen your faith.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the Truth Project, we focused a lot on Israel and, how how the false prophet has been focusing on Israel and really trying to get people to understand Revelation 13. And the same thing goes with the planting of the seeds you were mentioning, Alex, is that we really know the direction of things that are going in the world. I mean, Revelation 13, the second half, tells us what's going to happen with America. And there's so many pundits out there that are looking for China to defeat America, or for Russia to take over, or for all these doomsday things for America. But no. This golden age that Trump's talking about, the United States is going to fully come into that place of power where it's going to project itself throughout the world, and it's going to bring a Sunday law that the rest of the world's going to follow.
Yes.
And that's we know where that's going. So going along just with not just the Sunday law, but just looking at the geopolitical things, when we see it just seems to keep happening for America, just, despite the fact that, this or that doesn't seem to work out, or how it's been for the last 30 years or 40 years. No. It's going in this direction, and it's not changing, and it's going like this to the end, because the Revelation 13, that second beast, is rising up, and it will speak like a dragon.
Yeah, I fully agree.
These days, we're seeing videos pushing Sunday for health purposes. Let's take a look here.
What healthy habit, if we could CRISPR it out of another country and splice it into ours, what healthy habit should we insert into our country's DNA?
Okay, so I spend a part of my time in Norway. There's no shops open on Sunday. None. It's family day. When I was a young kid, I regretted the blue laws. I lived in Massachusetts, and there were blue laws. You know, no stores were open, and I actually think it's a good thing. It would be better if we dialed down the commerce and dialed up spending time with other people, out hiking. You know, again, you get a trifecta. You're out in nature, you're hiking, and you're socializing. And they do that every week. It is wonderful. We should have a little more of that in this country. It would be a very good practice for everyone.
It's interesting, you know, the gentlemen who are pushing that have recently been at the Pentagon. Of course, we spoke with Doug Wilson on this channel. If you haven't yet watched that discussion, take a look at it. But Doug Wilson, one of the people connected with his church, is Defense Secretary or Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth. Recently, Pete Hegseth spoke at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention.
If I may offer a few observations. Protecting the God-given life of an unborn baby is not political, it's biblical. Protecting our borders from criminals who steal from us, assault our loved ones, and poison our citizens is not political, it's biblical. Protecting women and children from being trafficked for sexual slavery is not political, it is biblical. Standing guard over our children, rather than letting them be taught perverse sexual practices or sharing a locker room with men pretending to be women, is not political, it's biblical. Protecting our culture and our religion from godless ideologies and pagan religions, not political, it's biblical.
Now, I mean, this all sounds well and good, but...
I mean, the thing is, we have to be careful here because we actually agree a lot on the actual fundamental principles that, like, yes, we don't want a pagan society. Yes, we don't want, but the question is how it's actually...
It's
how
the
do we,
enforcement of it.
Yes.
I've got one.
Okay.
Sabbath rest on a Saturday is not Jewish. It's biblical.
Yeah. Yeah, you should try that one later. Because you already hear. I think have I heard it yet? I've maybe seen it where they're saying it's Judaizing now.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
They're using that phrase Judaizing,
and that's what they've done that for. I mean, the Catholic Church did that. They talked about those who that don't let them Judaize, basically. But you know what's interesting is this National Religious Broadcasters Convention. This was in Nashville. And I was talking to some of the folks at Little Light Studios who went up there for it. And Doug Batchelor also went up there for it. And I was talking to Doug Batchelor here recently, and he said that it's fascinating because there's a lot of Christian nationalist kind of tint to this whole NRB convention that went on. And he said a lot of it makes sense. Yeah. From their standpoint, it does make sense, actually. I have to agree. Like, a lot of it, if you're looking at it through their worldview lens, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And that's how the devil works. He has a pot of mostly truth with just a sprinkle of arsenic.
Right.
But the whole thing's deadly.
Right. But you had like Flashpoint up there, is what I was told. And then you also had a Turning Point up there as well at the NRB. And, you know, those are gaining huge support right now.
This is the exact same thing that was happening in the Gilded Age as well. There were a lot of movements, temperance movement. There was a prison reform movement. There were all these things that, you know, everyone could agree. I mean, many people could agree. Certainly religious people, biblical people could agree. Our own people could agree that were good things.
Right.
But, you know, we were warned not to join them. So everything is repeating. History is repeating to the T. And, you know, and this is where we have to be careful with our people, too, that we do not get caught up in these political things because we know where they're tending.
It's order out of chaos, too. I mean, we had this huge pendulum swing to the left that got everybody, the majority of people riled up, and now we're swinging even harder back to the right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the people who has often talked with Doug Wilson or Stephen Wolf or some of the people from Doug Wilson's community is Joe Webbin with NXR Media.
I would look at all these specific moral laws in the Old Testament, and some of them being civic laws, civil codes. And I would say that the ones that specify the death penalty, that according to the Noahic covenant in Genesis chapter 9, there's actually only one crime, not only a sin, but it's also a crime, that merits or mandates even capital punishment, and that is the taking of someone's life. In the case of adultery or the case of breaking blue laws, which we had on the books here in America for quite a long time, Sabbath laws or blasphemy laws or these kinds of things, wherever the death penalty is mentioned, I would see that as that would be a maximum penalty. So in the state of Texas, you see signs, don't mess with Texas, littering,
Yes, yes.
$2,000 fine or 5 years in jail. And I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone who's doing hard time in prison right now. It's like, man, I've been here 3.5 years, 18 more months to go. I threw a Coke bottle out the window. And so what I would say is for repeat incessant offenders, homosexuality, for instance, not police going into private homes, but if someone is trying to indoctrinate children, they're writing paraphernalia, they're leading parades that are grotesque, egregious, where people are nude. They've done it again and again and again and again. They've received certain fines, certain penalties. They've been told to cease and desist. It's been years. They continue. Then yes, it could raise all the way up as a maximum penalty to that point. So that's how I look at the Old Testament. I know you would disagree, but just to answer the question.
So for the same would be for blasphemy and adultery, for example. Repeat offenders could theoretically face the death penalty.
Theoretically, a repeat offender could.
Interesting. He ties blue laws into that.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty enlightening, because we know, if you read the Great Controversy, there's going to be stages to this. It's not just going to be one law that seals the deal. It's going to be, don't work on Sunday. And that's what we're seeing pushed right now. Just don't work on Sunday.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that even now you have prominent voices. Joel Webbin is well known in the Christian nationalism camp. Well-known voices like that saying, repeat offenders, what are we expecting? We're expecting that it's going to be a progressive state. He's literally predicting the future.
Yeah, or telling you. Yeah.
Are you and I going to be repeat offenders?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so.
Yeah.
Because that means
based
I'm
on the
side of
weekly
truth.
cycle,
Based on the weekly cycle.
Yes, we will.
Right.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. But yeah, repeat offenders culminating in the death penalty. I mean, that's exactly what he's saying.
But, we're also told in the Great Controversy that there's going to be people that are fined. There's going to be people that are imprisoned. There's going to be people that are exiled specifically. And there's also going to be people that are made slaves.
Yeah.
That's predicted. And so we know that this is coming around the corner, but we also know that when in our darkest hour, lift up your heads, for your redemption draws nigh.
Amen. Yeah.
And, we view this life as this is the monumental, cataclysm that is going to happen. And the defining moment, and it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, our life on this earth compared to our life in heaven, this is like the intro.
Right.
This is like the 5-minute trailer to an eternity beyond.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a clip now from your neck of the woods, Michael.
So it's not only the fact that if a leader is, they allow Amazon, for example, to deliver on Sundays, right? Then there is a kind of a degradation of God's law in the land, right?
Yeah.
But the fact is that the person, the individual who allowed that to happen, right, or who did not enforce the PLU laws that were on the books, they are one day going to stand before God, right? And they're going to give account before the throne of Christ as to how they interacted with their country, and they will be judged. And so for us to remind them of that fact that's our duty.
Yeah. And I think the Sabbath laws are really a good place to have that discussion, because it's not like murder, where it's obvious to almost everyone that it's wrong. With the Sabbath law, you're going to a commandment that God has given, and humanly speaking, it may not make sense. Why do they promote Sunday trading? A big part of the reason is, Sundays is when everyone has off, so shouldn't they be allowed to go to the shops then? Notwithstanding the fact that to go to the shops, and some people have to work at the shops. And it's actually had a negative impact on pricing, for instance, because the cost of labor has gone up and things like that as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting circular thing, right?
Yeah.
So the government says no blue laws, so you can trade 1.5, and then somebody needs to pay for that, right? So that's I guess what you're getting to is that it can tend to drive up prices, and it just shows that. Sorry, go Ben.
And the reason for that, I would just note for the free market people, is because the free market identifies the fact that built into our psychology, the way that God has made us, we are built to have a weekend, to have a day of rest.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, here in the States, we are also seeing Roman Catholics making their movements towards advancing Roman Catholicism. Let's take a look at this next clip here.
What if a Catholic politician says, oh, I'm going to propose a law in the legislature that everybody has to go to Mass on Sunday? We'd say no. They don't have to go to Mass on Sunday. And don't even propose that law for Catholics, all right? Because that's a uniquely Catholic cause. Keeping the Sabbath holy, that's kind of very American, all right? Keeping Sunday special, that's kind of American. You see the distinction there? This is strange, everybody. Cardinal Timothy Dolan here. When I was a kid, I used to love helping my mom hang the laundry outside on the clothesline to dry. You old timers like me will remember that beautiful custom before we had electrical dryers. I used to love to be out in the fresh air and hang up the laundry to dry with Mom. But I noticed we never, ever did it on Sunday. We didn't do it on Sunday. And I said to Mom, aren't we going to do the laundry and hang up the stuff outside to dry? She said, honey, not on Sunday. Not on Sunday. This is the day that we worship God and try to avoid all unnecessary work. That's a beautiful custom, folks. Did I ever tell you that I was in a synagogue once for Shabbat, and a young man was bar mitzvahed? And afterwards, I said to him, here, I'm giving you my zucchetto. And then he gave me his to wear, the skull cap that Jews wear. And he said, oh, Cardinal Dolan, would you sign it? So I autographed the inside of my zucchetto. And then I said to him, hey, how about you autographing yours? And he looked at me and said, I can't because it's the Sabbath. That's how seriously they take the Sabbath, okay? We need to get back to that. No unnecessary work on Sunday. It's time for prayer, worship, Mass, family, friends, relaxation.
It's interesting that the two things that he noted there that impressed him about this idea of not doing work on the Sunday is he mentions not doing the work on the Sunday with his mum, hanging the washing on the line. And the other thing that he commends is that the Jews, the strictness to which the Jews keep the Sabbath. And he's like, that's how we should get back to keeping the Sabbath. It's like, man, that's something else.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of Sabbath right there.
That's true. I mean, the Sabbath used to be kept, in the early days of the church. I mean, not talking about the early Christians, let's say from sundown to sundown, but there was a thing where they would start, keeping, like over 24 hours holy. Mm-hmm. And it was because actually when you first had the Sunday coming into prominence and you still were keeping the Sabbath, there was this kind of overlap where it kind of started and went over more than 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So it was very, sort of rigid sort of way of looking at it. But what I was thinking of during that clip was when he said, this is the day that we worship God. The first thing I thought of is, well, who gets to decide what day that is?
Mm. Yeah.
Who decides that? Is that man, or or does God decide which day he wants to be worshipped?
Sadly, the religion of Catholicism has often participated in persecution. We've got some examples here, some new ones, and we're always doing new research. But this is an example from the Vatican Digital Library from Zanchino Ugolini in the 14th century. Suppose that some proof has been made against the subject, not yet full, for example, by one witness of good opinion and fame. This could be somebody who lied, but the person questioned completely denies the inquisitor's content. Can he be tortured or forced to confess, as is done in other crimes? He can be tortured by the inquisitor or bishop. So Roman Catholicism has long been intolerant and advocated for church-state union. Stating in The Shepherd of the Valley, the church, we admit, is of necessity intolerant. That is, she does everything in her power to check as effectually as circumstances will permit the progress of crime and error. Her intolerance follows necessarily from her claim of infallibility. She alone has the right to be intolerant because she alone professes to possess and teach the truth. No other religious body on earth makes such a claim. She not only makes it, but is able to prove that it is not made in vain. Toleration of error and crime is not really a doctrine of Protestantism, nor is this toleration held to, and it goes on. But ultimately, Roman Catholicism is very, very bold about, yes, she can be intolerant because she is infallible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So far, with all these clips that we've been watching, the trend that I'm seeing is there's a huge difference here between this type of religion that we're getting pushed here in these, in these clips, compared to the religion of Christ, right? His was gentle and his was kind and patient. Like God is long suffering, and what we're seeing here is a very different type of Christianity. It's almost like Christianity is being hijacked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I think of Christ dying on the cross for us, what he gave to every man, besides the opportunity for forgiveness, because it's more than this, he actually gave man the choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he died for free will, for choice, and this is at the heart of religious liberty. So, to have an organization or a church say that they're intolerant of any other beliefs other than their own is completely the opposite of a Christ, of Jesus Christ, who came and died so that we would have a choice.
Exactly. And we see that picture when the priest goes in, he takes the sin offering into the holy place, and he sprinkles, and then he comes back and he spills the rest in the sand. Right, this is a prefigure of Christ dying for people who weren't going to accept his sacrifice. Even though he knew beforehand that many people wouldn't accept it, he still went forward, just like you said, to give us freedom of choice.
Well, you think that symbolism really hit me, because if you look at a bowl, if he takes a bowl which has, I don't know, a quart of blood in it or something like that, and you go into the temple and you dip your fingers in it and you flick it a few times.
Tiny amount.
It's a tiny amount.
Yeah.
You're talking like less than 1/100th of the volume, and the rest is poured out and is wasted.
Yeah. It's a
And you
shame.
think but Christ was still willing to go to the cross, knowing that the sacrifice for many people would be of none effect. It would be made by their own choice. They would forfeit heaven.
Yeah. In order for us to have the choice, we have to have grace, and grace is not just forgiveness. Grace is the divine influence. So for everyone to have access to the divine influence, to God to speak to their hearts and have a choice to serve him, even though most won't accept, that's what he died for. So it's not just for forgiveness, like a treasury of merit or something. It's actually just the legal right to speak to the hearts of men and women that they could choose him again. I mean, that's an incredible gift.
So let's take a look at this next clip here and see what some of the Sunday advocates are calling for.
When you read early American philosophers, early 1800s, who were not Christians, they all said you have to have a moral framework. You can't have people deciding what's right or wrong for themselves. We have to have one overarching standard. And we have to determine which one we're going to pick. And the one they picked was the New Testament, because they were like, that's just better than all the rest. And I agree. It's better than all the rest. So so I have no problem saying, yes, of course, we should shut things down on Sunday. Yeah, of course, we should close everything out on Sundays. In Pennsylvania, there are these things called blue laws that were passed in the early 1900s that still exist. So if you go to Pennsylvania today, my home state, car dealerships are closed on Sundays. There are like whole industries that are still closed on Sundays, still to this day, because they were like, you're not going to work on Sunday. That's the Lord's Day. And I remember being a car salesman. We were closed on Sundays. They were like, and I remember my pagan, liberal, immoral manager saying, yeah, we're closed on Sundays. It's the Lord's Day. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you clearly don't believe. So I have no problem saying that our laws should follow God's moral law, which is summed up in the Ten Commandments. The Decalogue is the summary of all things that God says are right or wrong. And I have no problem with the Decalogue being the foundation of a nation's laws. Is Sunday the Sabbath? I'm going to very, very loosely say yes. Yeah, I'm like 51-49. Ask me tomorrow, I might have a different opinion. So the argument is is Sunday the Sabbath day? Or as long as there's a very prominent view in evangelicalism that would say take a Sabbath, pick one day a week where you break from your routine. It can be any day of the week as long as you pick one day a week. And I think there's some good arguments for that. I think there's some good arguments people are making there. I'm not totally sold. I'm like 49% convinced those are good arguments, 51% convinced they're bad arguments. And so I think it should be Sunday.
So he just got done advocating for blue laws, but now he's saying pick any day of the week.
Yeah.
Is that logically consistent? You're willing to codify into law and force other people that which you can only say that you have enough assurance of 51%.
Yeah.
I think this is actually the reason why Sunday law will actually be so attractive to people who are not religious, because it's not going. I don't believe it's going to be pushed, from every angle as a religious day. We know that it's going to come as a day for the family, a day for you to rest from work, a day for you to grow your community or whatever, a day to heal the environment. And so when we don't have like such a dogmatic view of like, oh, it has to be Sunday because it's a day that you have to worship God and that's all that it is, it becomes an easy day for anybody to accept. You can accept it for whatever you want.
Yeah.
Some people accept it as a religious day. I just accept it as a day to help nature, whatever.
I think it'll be so appealing because deep down, and people may not realize this, but I mean, we're wired to have that time with our Creator and Redeemer, to spend that day of rest with Him.
Mm-hmm.
And humanity is just confused on that, and largely they're lost on the day.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend of mine who is battling with this right now. It's a friend of mine who is a Sunday keeper, and there's a battle going on in his mind about this. And there's been texting threads back and forth that go on, and there's been videos sent back and forth. Just and I having these discussions with this person, and it's just, how do you convince them? And I realized we can't convince. It's not our job to convince. It's our job to try and show them the Bible verses. But you know what? It's the Holy Spirit who has the convicting power. So, I'm not going to mention his name, but I have this friend, just call him Alex's friend. If you're out there and you're watching this video, I would encourage you, number one, everybody has somebody who is struggling with this or needs to know about it, who is a Sunday keeper who doesn't know any better. And if you don't know somebody who fits that bill, then go find someone. But I would encourage you to get down on your knees and pray for that person, that the Holy Spirit would convict them. And while you're at it, pray for my friend, because we have to pick. Ellen White talks about this. She says that we're supposed to get down on our knees and say, "This soul I must have."
Yeah.
And so that's what I like. We were praying this morning, Michael, and here in this studio, we were dropping to our knees and saying, we have to be a witness, and we can't convince these people. The Holy Spirit does. So then we have to ask for that. And you know what? If there's one thing that we know is in accordance with God's will, it's the conversion of others. It's to have them come to the truth.
Yeah, and there's a spiritual delusion there, in the many conversations that I've had, on the subject. You can present truth after truth after truth, and it's just so clear because there's just so much evidence in the Bible from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And they just will not see it.
Yeah.
And there's a spiritual delusion, and we need to be praying for that and praying for heavenly angels to intervene and peel back the forces of darkness. So I've got a further challenge to what you're bringing up, and tell me what you guys think about this. But how about we do, and we can come up with the details, but we announce an organized, maybe a day or 2 days where we fast and pray.
Yeah.
Not for just your friend, but for everyone who's under this delusion.
I think it's a good idea. I really do. Yeah.
I think our name is very important.
Yeah.
Seventh-day Adventists.
Right.
This is something that's been happening too, where we're taking our names off of our schools, taking our names off of our institutions, because we're ashamed or we think this is a weird thing. But I was at a mental hospital last weekend, and I was preaching to different groups of people, ranging from Muslims to Wiccans to, you name it. And there's actually a Catholic priest there, a chaplain there, who's retired, was listening to me too. I didn't get into the Sunday law so much, but I thought it was a very thorough, righteous my faith message. And one guy came up to me at the end. He says, "Can I ask you what denomination you are?" I said, "I'm a Seventh-day Adventist." He He says, I had a feeling you were. And he said, in the Bible, there's not this denominationalism. This doesn't exist in the Bible. I said, you're right. It doesn't talk about that. But if you go to the early Christian church in the book of Acts, what were they looking for? They were looking for Christ to come back like right away, right? Paul was addressing the Thessalonians that don't get too excited. There's a few things that still have to come, before that day comes, the man of sin, And then what day did they all keep? The Bible says that they all kept the Sabbath. So that's us.
Yeah.
We're Adventists. We're looking for the soon coming of Christ, and we all keep the Sabbath, just like the early Christian church. That's who we are. So don't think of the name as a denomination. Think of it as a name as telling you that we're actually just following the Bible fully.
Yeah.
And that's who we are. And that's how we should talk about our name.
Well, in Revelation 14:12, what are the traits of God's remnant church, right? It's you have the faith of Jesus and you keep the commandments.
That's it.
Right. So those two things, and really when you think about it from an Adventist perspective, one of the unique things, most people know about the Sabbath, but they don't know about our righteousness by faith message, which is a shame.
That's right. That's the shame.
Yeah.
And that's why we're trying to talk about that so much on this channel.
Mm-hmm. We have more to take a look at here recently that has been unearthed in early American history. One of the things that Christian nationalists are going to appeal to is that early American history, and there were blue laws in, this is the laws of New Plymouth right here, records of the General Court. One of the things that I find interesting is if you look at New Plymouth's laws, there was a death penalty prescribed for a violation of the Lord's Day. It says here, such a person therein despising and reproaching the Lord shall be put to death or grievously punished at the judgment of the court. And so this was for whoever shall profane the Lord's day by doing unnecessary servile work. They're going to appeal to this. And I think the first step to doing that is to start to kind of demonize those people who actually violate Sunday. And some examples that we're seeing of that here recently is in MSN News. They're now saying that Seventh-day Adventists are not considered Christians. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, if you're painting the picture of America as a Judeo-Christian society, a Judeo-Christian culture that you want to establish by force of law, it follows then that anybody who is viewed as a dissident to that, the way to really blacklist them, the way to really, give a reason to go after them is to simply say, well, these people are not Christians.
Yeah.
So therefore, they don't deserve the same protection of law in our nation. And that's starting to happen. It's happened before, but it will happen more and more as time goes on, where Adventists are these weird fringe people.
And even in our conversation with Jared Longshore in the video that we did, he talked about us, and at that point, he's identifying us as his Christian brothers, but he made very clear if we were Muslim or anything outside of that, we had no protection.
Yeah.
So it only stands that at some point they're going to have to make us to where we're not Christian.
Yes.
Yeah. And in that clip right there on your slide, it says Adventists often look like the evangelical neighbors you trust, but their beliefs keep sparking conversations that don't end easily over coffee. And that's because we're not supposed to be drinking coffee.
That's right. That's right. Preach it.
Right? I mean, so right there. Oh, you don't drink coffee? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Imagine that. I want to sleep better and not have dementia or.
The main thing, which we've actually talked about doing a full video about the effects of caffeine, because we've done a couple other videos about like the physiology of worship and the physiology of the crucifixion and everything.
We know caffeine's a potent vasoconstrictor.
That's the main thing though, is that coffee is actually the caffeine effect on the brain. There were studies that were done that looked at the brain's blood vessels.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is how much it vasoconstricts.
Correct.
So, it specifically constricts your frontal lobe blood vessels. And that is the seat of your consciousness, basically. That's the seat of your higher executive decision making. So, light flashes through, comes through, hits your eye, travels along your optic nerve, goes all the way back to your occipital lobe, and then that information cascades forward in this shower of electricity through neuronal activity all the way forward, and it reaches your front, and that's where you actually decide, okay, what am I going to do with this?
Right.
And so that's where you sit, is right there behind your forehead, which actually, Ellen White talks about Satan actually, and talks about his forehead. Actually, there's an interesting
Interesting.
snippet about that. But anyway, how it
Yeah.
has like a decreased frontal lobe, essentially.
Right.
But anyway, so when you drink caffeine, you're literally putting physiologic handcuffs on the portion of your brain that communicates with a higher power.
Right. Right.
It's not just about sleep. I mean, sure, there's detriments with sleep.
Yeah.
Sure, there's chronic adrenal fatigue. Sure, there's all the other negatives out there. But a lot of people will say, well, there's a lot of positive studies too. There may be positive studies about it.
Yeah.
There's positive studies about alcohol out there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just drink a glass of wine every day and you'll live to 100 just like the Sardinians do. There's all these other things. Never mind the fact that it clouds your mind and, is not for kings, O Lemuel, to drink wine lest they forget the law.
Right.
So we have
exactly.
these, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, whosoever who drinks thereof is not wise. Well, what about caffeine?
Yeah. And not only does it shut off your blood flow with vasoconstriction, but it's a potent diuretic.
Right.
So
it dehydrates you.
Exactly, which further
Dehydration.
cuts off your blood flow. Yeah.
But
we should
I'll
make
get
a
off
video.
my soapbox.
Make a comment if you want a video on the effects of caffeine.
Yeah. I think you all as y'all. I think y'all as medical professionals there, this is a great topic for you to take up because this is something that we're struggling with within our own ranks, dealing with caffeine. If that's what I mean, I've seen sparks fly in churches where I've been, where we just bring up that thing about caffeine. It says right there in the Spirit of Prophecy that drinking tea and caffeine is a sin.
Hey, you know what? If an apple kept Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, a coffee bean can just as well keep you out of heaven.
And how sad would it be to lose all of eternity because you make your God your belly, you make your God that coffee bean or whatever other vice it is that you have. There's some people that struggle with French fries and they just can't give them up. Yeah. Okay? There's people that struggle with everything. If we're not laying it all on the altar and saying, not my will, but your will be done.
That's right. Full surrender.
Full surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking about unhealthy foods here. I mean, think about Esau.
Well, yeah. He
had sold his inheritance for a bowl of lentils.
We would consider that healthy.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
That's true. That's true.
All right, guys, I got some more clips off of X here recently. Many people starting to push for them. Pennsylvania blue laws. Cardinal Dolan, I'd like to see blue laws be reinstated, the Sabbath rest rediscovered. I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see how blue laws are being talked about by blue checks all over. Christ is King.
See, this is the thing, is that we expected this to be a grassroots movement.
Yeah. Let's take a look here. Stuart Robertson on blue laws. You can pause the video and read all of these. But, Republicans, we demand the 10 Commandments in every school. Blue laws, anti-LGBT, anti-choice laws because of our beliefs. Reinstate blasphemy laws. Of course, Stephen Wolfe would love that. Reinstate blue laws. And this is not, this is not small accounts either. This one, like the Mommy Talks, this is an influencer with 500,000, almost 500,000 followers and advocating for Sunday rest. Now, it's interesting, too, and we're going to get to this here in just a moment. Speaking of the modern Colosseum, we've got some thoughts there about the football and some
upcoming
halftime shows.
Yeah,
upcoming. Yeah. But blue laws, moral law, and the modern Colosseum. Here's another one right here. Once again, discussing and advocating for blue laws. This one from Avenir is a daily Catholic newspaper in Italy. And not just rest Sunday is a social resource. It's time to free it up. I'm not surprised to see this in Italy. But, we can see a lot of these advocating for this now. Here's a newspaper from Montenegro. Sunday off brought back. Both the government and the opposition supported it. The Daily News advocating Sabbath is more than a day of rest. You can see this reporting from the American Psychological Association. The Royal Gazette, once again, commenting on the Heritage Foundation, speaking about these so-called blue laws. And it's interesting here that the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Bermuda is not seeking privilege. We are seeking principle. We are not resisting arrest. We are resisting coercion. One practical way that you can get involved is write a letter for your local newspaper. If you're overwhelmed with your busy schedule, there's no excuse to not be writing in and doing everything we can to bring light to these kinds of laws. The Republic Monitor, musings on a day of rest we didn't know we needed. So the simplicity of Sundays was a godsend to our hearts. I dare say it was not the God of the Bible that sent it.
Yep.
So guys, what did we see for Turning Point? We saw something here recently for a halftime show. Before I play this clip, what were your guys' take on that halftime show?
Actually, I've seen a few clips of Kid Rock, but I haven't watched very much of it.
Well, my take on it was it's still stardom worship. It's still fan worship. You know, one of the episodes that we have just recently finished recording, but it's not going to get released immediately because it's a long episode. It's going to take a lot of editing. We actually interviewed Gabriel Estavajo, and he is an ex-Satanist, now a devout Seventh-day Adventist studying for his MDiv over in the Philippines. And he talked to us about his experience growing up as a Satanist and holding intimate communication with demons, and seeing a lot of the secret societies and everything else. What an eye-opening conversation. And Brian, I don't know about you, but one of the things that really stuck out to me during that interview that we had with him, which we're going to air on this channel here fairly soon, was his commentary about football and about sports worship and how it's all a giant religious ceremony.
Yeah. And hint, it's not towards God.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not the one we worship.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mesoamerican society too, wasn't this also not a thing too, where the sports were part of that worship as well, and there were human sacrifices involved?
Yes.
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 So let's play this clip here.
Dear Lord, there was a time when the good news stayed inside church walls, when believers grew comfortable and quiet, when the lost walked by unseen, and heaven felt far away. In that silence, worldly living was celebrated, truth was ignored, and people faced eternity separated from God.
We as Christians are called to go into the public arena to correct error with truth. And there's a lot of error. We're all sinners. I'm far more interested in what God wants of me than what I want from God.
But now, the church awakens. She remembers the gospel. She sees the lost, and she rises. Lord, use us, wretched sinners we are, to bring forth your gospel to every city, every campus, every school, every workplace, to take the message of Jesus Christ into whatever sphere we are in. We are called to share your truth, that eternal punishment is real, but your forgiveness is greater, that our sin condemns, but Christ alone saves. Use us, Lord, to make heaven crowded.
Now, for all of that, for all of the virtue signaling there, let's take a look at some of the clips that came out. And, you know, one of the things that, unfortunately, we saw was a lot of the lyrics that were featured in the songs were very much violations of God's law.
Yeah.
So let's take a look.
Hard to love, oh, I don't make it easy. Dude, you're like a Sunday morning, for the Sunday roll call. One Sunday morning. Full of grace and full of Jesus. I wish that I could be more like you. I'm hard to love,
So Sunday was something that was brought up in the lyrics several times. We also had some of the song people, we'll take a look at this clip right here, who sang about this. And if you'll notice, you may be able to see it in this clip here, right at the base of his microphone, there's a snake.
Yeah. I spotted that. I was watching it and I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take a look, though. You know, I got to ask the question, though, because a lot of people are pointing to some of these songs, like, for example, Kid Rock here. We'll play this next one. And they think, oh, wow, this is Christian. This looks good. But they're missing the deception where Satan has error blended in. He jumps out on stage and you see him singing about the methadone clinics and all of this other stuff. And then
he has like one of the biggest, flashiest buildups before he's like catapulted onto stage. Like they had like a trap door or something underneath, and he comes flying out like it's like this like flying jump, and it's like the ultimate stardom. Like all the lights, everything is like focused on him basically.
And doesn't he kind of start out dressed, and it's more of like his older songs, the very much the more secular, and then at the very end, it's a Christian song. Is that? Am I jumping the gun here?
No, you're good.
I have a comment on that.
You're good. Let's play that clip though at the end.
You know, I awoke one Sunday morning, all alone, with this song stuck in my head. And in that moment, something or someone spoke to me. They said there was still a verse that needed to be written for this song, and to get up and write it down.
So let's take a look here. I think this next clip, you'll see the serpent at the base.
I was brought up in a small town, North Georgia. Raised on some Baptist moles in the front row pew for the Sunday roll call. Everybody praise the Lord. Y'all grew up learning how to hunt and fish. How to bust a 12-gauge pump and not miss a life without work. That's just a minute.
Obviously, they're talking about Sunday. There's a few other clips of them talking about getting drunk.
Yeah.
And the one lady's singing in blue. I can't remember her name now, but she's singing about, I hope that she cheats on you like you did on me.
I hope she comes along and says I'm only important. She wanna make you wild and straight. She's everything you're gonna need. Like you did on me.
So there's this, obviously it's this breakup song, but she's hoping that her ex will have another breakup and that cheating will take place. Again, like that's not something that Christ would ever hope on his enemy.
No, and I just think it's interesting if again, from what I understand is correct, Kid Rock came in very much secular, and then you see this transition, where he's playing this Christian song at the end. If you had a true conversion, would you not forsake all your past life? Where's that repentance? Where is that breaking off?
But see, that's the thing, is look at the interview that he had on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, and look at how his view on Christianity is shaped. Take a look at this.
But I wanted Bigfoot to be real, for sure. Just like I want Jesus to be real.
He is?
Well, the thing, Bigfoot used to be real. The thing that I found out when I really got fascinated by Bigfoot.
You know how you know Jesus is real right in this moment?
How?
Because the forgiveness that I am exercising by drinking this Bud Light right now.
Oh, that's Jesus?
That's Jesus. Jesus is everywhere. He's in this room. He's in the world. He's in the universe. By the aliens that you want so desperately to be real or have the concept of them being real, that's Jesus. That is Jesus. As a Christian, I have to believe in forgiveness.
Beautiful. Cheers. Well said.
I don't think we worship the same Christ. I mean, there's so much that you could unpack there.
That really fills up the bingo card,
Yeah.
that one. Because, so much is touched on that, regards to aliens, to sort of, I was thinking of like the sailors going to Amsterdam in the red light district, right? I mean, it's like you're paying for your sins before you commit them, and this is you're exercising your faith. It's insane.
Yeah.
I was also thinking too, it's like, is paganism really conservative or is it liberal?
It's interesting how out of nowhere he ties aliens into that, and then he ties aliens into Jesus. We're going to talk more about this, I think, here shortly.
Yeah, Hollywood is doing it. I mean, it's they're preparing. This is part of the bigger deception that's coming for sure.
Brian, you're supposed to repeat your line.
Well, remind me of my
the
line.
living temple.
Oh yeah. Well, and plus he's a pantheist, right? I mean, clearly he's read Kellogg's Living Temple.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you said that in the pre-show before we, and I was like, oh, that's profound.
But I hadn't watched the whole thing. I mean, that's just there's so much there.
But look at it. It's like God in the center.
Yes.
I mean, that's exactly what Ellen White warned
advocating.
about. It's like salvation in sin instead of salvation
The
from
omega
sin.
of apostasy.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's like the turning point video you just showed with the circle and the eyeball and the pupil and the sun in the center of it. It's all the same. It's the symbolism for that.
And it's interesting, that this is like, because you see it was bad. I don't know a single Bad Bunny song. I don't listen to secular music anymore, but I know he was, the performer at the halftime show, and this is why Turning Point USA had to do this quote unquote Christian halftime show.
Yeah.
And Bad Bunny, I think, was put on by Jay-Z, and Jay-Z's an open occultist, and in the music industry, it's very blatant occultism, Satanism. It's becoming more and more open, and so they've used that to shift towards this and paint it as Christian, and it's not Christian,
right?
But you can pull the masses into it.
Yeah, I think the conservative liberal kind of dichotomy that you have, the two sides going back and forth, you tend to think one or the other is actually the one, but you see both sides. They're both pagan.
Yes, exactly.
That's the
Exactly.
point.
Right. Right. Exactly. They both worship the same master.
So speaking of aliens, I thought that was very interesting for that clip because, of course, we've seen some stuff about aliens here recently from our president. Let's take a look at this. Based on tremendous interest, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, UAP, and UFOs, President Donald Trump. Now, what's significant about all of this is we just had an invasion of Iran and Israel, right? But February 19th, a few days ago, there was an interview on a YouTube channel of Chris Bledsoe, who wrote a book back in 2020. And he had some commentary in that book about what was going to be taking place around Easter of 2026, specifically between Israel and Iran. But also, what sort of intervention would take place when that war broke out. Let's play this clip real fast, and then I want to get your guys' thoughts on this.
And does that lead us into the 2026 event?
2026 into a time of awakening and peace, not war.
And you have been called, I know you don't like the word prophet.
Right.
So let's just call it a prediction. What was the prediction that the lady made?
Well, what she told me was it was a riddle in a way. And she told me on 2013 about the thing with Iran and Israel. So it was 2013 is when I first got that information. And that's the year that I was asked to put it in writing to the Pentagon.
What did she see between Iran and Israel?
She said, when you see Israel and Iran begin to exchange missiles, and I saw them in vision, they give you telepathic, you see, it's like looking at a television, really. That's what it kind of looks like. She said, when you see these happen, that's when we're going to come in and we're going to start waking up the population. We're going to reveal ourselves, which will change the consciousness of people. So all this new knowledge is about disclosure. It's about consciousness, and they're going to make it happen because it tames people. It opens us up. It turns us into psychic beings. It gives us power. A lot of things this does.
Spiritualism.
Yeah.
You know, if you go to a quote by Albert Pike, Albert Pike was the 33rd degree Freemason that lived from 1809 to 1891. And there's a supposed letter that was written, and it was between Albert Pike and another individual. Now, this letter was supposedly on display. I think it was in the British Museum until 1977. But if you ask the British Museum now, they say it doesn't exist. Nevertheless, it's been out there for a long time. So although it is attributed to Albert Pike, who really knows exactly where it came from? So I'm not there to dispute that. And obviously it does have some murky origin. But what it contains in it is very interesting. And Brian, you actually sent this to me. And there's mention of 2 world wars, and there's description of those, and there's a long kind of description. But what does this Third World War discussion here have to say?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You mentioned the little background of Albert Pike, but he wrote Morals and Dogma, which is like the Bible of Freemasonry. So this is who that guy is, and in that Morals and Dogma, it specifically states that they worship Lucifer. So there's no hiding. So this is who this guy is. And obviously, we've had the first 2 world wars come true. And it says the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. Interesting that you see that all over the news now. And then the war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists. Some people would even tie that into Antifa. And we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, and this is order out of chaos language.
Oh, yeah.
Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. And again, this guy is, I mean, Morals and Dogma, that's not, he wrote Morals and Dogma, he is a Luciferian. So you can debate the origin of this letter just like they debate the origin of the Jesuit oath.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. You won't know that it's pure Luciferianism.
Right.
You will think that it's actually the pure Bible or Christianity or whatever it is that Rome is selling, or the false prophet. You're going to think that it's actually God.
Yeah.
But it's actually, so what's happening, right, with the hierarchy in 2025 and stuff, the world is being prepared to accept Luciferianism as a counterfeit, as a counterfeit to true Christianity, but the world doesn't realize that. But it doesn't matter, because it's what it's either you go along with it with your hand because you want to get along, or you actually really believe it. I'm telling you that Adventists are not unsusceptible to this. There are people that in my time that I've spent traveling and going to churches, and I talk about my testimony, having left the church and coming back, there are many people that come to me and talk to me about their children that have left the church, or other people that they know, and they're praying for them to come back. And the things that are causing them to leave the church are many times the getting caught up in the politics and starting to look at the church is just like one of the like the Seventh-day Adventist movement is just like all the other failed things.
Yeah.
And that they're looking for something still that's more real than what we have. And there's whole sections of our church, I think, they're going to be fooled by this as well. And it's far more dangerous than we think.
Yeah.
It's far more dangerous than we think.
No, I agree. And I think you're going to have this chaos, and my personal belief is that at some point in that, the UFO phenomenon will be interjected, and you'll have these entities reveal themselves as champions of peace.
Which are just demons.
They are demons, to be very clear. They're fallen angels. And it's interesting, we were talking about the lady from Chris Bledsoe, or we listened to Chris Bledsoe. So reading out an excerpt out of his book, UFO of God, talking about the lady, he says, she warned that there were forces at work to cast phenomena like this in a negative light.
Almost sounds like a Fatima.
Exactly. It's kind of how the appearance was, exactly. And she said, if this view won out, humanity would be set on a path to ruin. It almost makes it sound like those might be Christians. What do you think, James? Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
It's us.
Absolutely, yes.
We just need to mention, though, as well, that none of us really believe that these guys are prophets.
Right.
No.
Chris
Or
Bledsoe,
not. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
No.
or Albert Pike. But we see in this their plan. And
Correct.
we also know from, the Bible and the Great Controversy that this is pretty much along the lines of what's actually going to go down, yeah.
Yeah, and she actually, there's some other quotes attributed to the lady as well, where she basically said that there are forces working to script out the events of Revelation, making it seem like, that there are people who are trying to make it happen like it's a script.
I think we're living in the worst possible times right now, that if we don't make some changes, there's going to be some major disasters about to happen. And it's man-made. It's not solar flare. It's not any of that. It's a dark force. Because she told me, well, I'll tell you what she told me. This is what I put in writing, part of it. She said, there are people in power. I put this in writing in 2012. She said, there are people in power. And I'm not going to say where she focused my thoughts on that, but there's script in the book of Revelation to bring about Armageddon and the end of the world. They're doing it intentionally, and that's what she told me. And that's the very thing the main meat of the whole message I sent to these generals.
Not that it's prophecy being fulfilled. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, accuse your enemy of doing what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yes, exactly.
Speaking of those people who are advancing Revelation, let's take a look at this clip right here and what the Catholics are up to.
O Sacred Heart of Jesus, King of heaven and earth, I place today my nation, the United States of America, into your heart, pierced for love of us, on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, I acknowledge that true liberty is your gift and that our lasting homeland is the eternal kingdom of God. Under the mantle of Our Lady of Guadalupe, patroness of the Americas, and through the intercession of her Immaculate Heart, bless my homeland anew, purify her from sin, and guide her leaders in truth, justice, and peace, so that she may safeguard all human life, respect the integrity of marriage and the family, and honor the practice of religion. Reign in my home and in my nation, draw every heart into communion with you, that your truth, love, justice, mercy, and peace may triumph in America and throughout the world. Amen.
You know, one of the things that this kind of reminds me of here is he's basically trying to dedicate the United States to the Catholic Church, I'd say, which we know that, you know, the second beast of Revelation 13 makes an image to the first beast, right? And what I found was interesting is, you know, we're getting ready to have this multi-event celebration this coming summer, May, leading into the 4th of July, celebrating the country's 250th birthday. And there's this really big day that's going to be happening May 17, where they're having a national day of prayer on the National Mall. And you know, and at the end of this program, we're going to have a little bit of more instruction actually about passing out some literature there. But one of the things that I found was interesting is there's been discussion about a prayer there where the country is prayed over and kind of dedicated to Mary. At least that's kind of the plan. That's kind of some of the foreshadowing of what I've seen. And then they're having kind of further events after that in the country. And one of those events actually was the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage of 2026. Walk with Jesus, pray for the nation, follow the journey. In honor of America's 250th year, the 2026 National Eucharistic Pilgrimage will carry the theme, One Nation Under God. One Nation Under God is not a slogan. It's an invitation to realign our lives, communities, and country under the sovereignty of Christ. It's a call to build unity through prayer and to let Jesus present in the Eucharist, renew and heal the heart of our country one soul at a time. As pilgrims on this route, we walk with Christ so that his love might draw our nation back to him. You're invited to join us in person or in spirit and offer prayers and sacrifices for the renewal of America. And so they have this imagery here which shows them walking, carrying the Eucharist with like a cloth basically over like a sunshade, with like these I don't know if you call them pallbearers or what, but basically holding this canopy as it travels forward, holding this Eucharist aloft with the sun rays, mind you.
Wow. Can we pull back up the video we just watched with the older gentleman praying? You don't have to play it. Look at the, do you guys ever pray with your hands like that? I don't know if you notice this or not, Andrew, but that putting your hands like that is basically, it's an occult symbol. So it's like a symbol of power. And actually at Charlie Kirk's funeral, you know, Elon Musk and Trump had this big rift where they didn't talk for a long time. Mm-hmm. They got back together at Trump's funeral. And there was a lot of videos when they got together. I think it was up in a suite or a booth. And they, you know, Musk goes over and sits next to him. They're both making these hand symbols.
The occult world is actually more fractious than we think it is. They're always vying for power and fighting with each other. It's kind of like the fallen angels that, you know, that are kind of like that too, and that they unite together on their hatred for Christ. It says that, we know that from the Spirit of Prophecy. So yeah, but a lot of it's drama too, right?
It is.
You know, But yeah, it's very fictitious, you know, and yeah, it's amazing. You know, I think things happen too very subliminally. People do things they don't even realize that they're sometimes doing.
Sure.
Sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes it's just done because that's the spirit that's controlling them, and it just kind of comes through. It kind of shines through more than they even realize it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that, and then there's something in the occult world where they have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it.
Yes, it's supposedly to remove guilt.
Right. Yeah.
So recently, speaking of national revival, there's been some pushes to do that, and we're going to take a look at some of those. We recently had a revival in our local church, which I'll show here in just a moment, but we didn't realize that the same themes were actually being broadcast nationally. Let me show you what I mean, and we're going to talk about the significance of this in the Old Testament.
For generations, the biblical story of Nehemiah has echoed as a call to rebuild, not just walls, but hearts. A scribe named Ezra, burdened by God, reawakened the people to their identity and calling through a national reading of God's law. Soon after, Nehemiah rallied the nation to fully rebuild their defenses in just 52 days. Today, America faces its own moment of decision, a culture adrift, leadership gaps across every sphere, families fractured, faith forgotten. In ancient Israel, it wasn't just Nehemiah who led. It was also Ezra, a scribe who stood before the people and read the word of God aloud. As scripture returned, revival followed. In 2026, as America marks 250 years old, a new nation of leaders will rise, Ezras for our time, calling the nation back to its foundation. From every state, every background, every walk of life. Government leaders, artists, CEOs, pastors, parents, ordinary Americans, united in one purpose: to read the entire Bible aloud, Genesis to Revelation, over 7 days, broadcast to the nation. People will watch it and hear the precious words in churches, in homes, in schools and offices, on screens all over, from rural America to our urban cities, nationwide. America reads the Bible. A public declaration that Scripture still speaks, that truth still matters, that God is not finished with America. From the World Stage Theater at the Museum of the Bible to landmarks across Washington, D.C., to other locations important to our national story, a week of Scripture, worship, and witness. This is more than an event. It's a realignment, a reawakening, a return. April 18 through 25, 2026. America reads the Bible. 1 week, one nation, one book.
Look at all those people who are associated with it, man.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think is so significant about this is if you think about the book of Nehemiah, there's a real revival over the book of Nehemiah that I think is taking place within our church. But from their perspective, one of the things that we are seeing some of the Christian nationalists comment about Nehemiah specifically is Nehemiah's advocation for protecting the Sabbath and specifically beating those who disagree or those who break the Sabbath. Now, there's another aspect here that I think is important. Ezra and Nehemiah is about, you have God's people leaving where they had become comfortable and complacent.
Yeah.
You know, they were there in a foreign land where they had gotten kind of, accustomed to it. And I think that's probably true of us today. We are accustomed to this world, but are we really ready to move on to the world to come? Well, there was about 50,000 people that left to go back to Jerusalem. And it's interesting that in 1844, if you read the Great Controversy, there was about 50,000 people that came out of other churches to join our movement. Very similar. And if you think about what's next after Nehemiah, it's the book of Esther, where,
there's a death decree.
Exactly. Correct. There's a death decree against the people of God. And then what comes after Esther? You have Job, a perfect man who obeys the commandments of God. And in all this, Job sins not, but he goes through tribulation and loses everything. But yet God restores it at the end of time. And then after that, you've got, Psalms, maybe Psalms 91 talks about the plagues, for example. Or if you keep going, you've got, books like Malachi and other books of the minor prophets that speak about the coming of the Lord.
Now, James, are you trying to say that there's a great controversy narrative in the Old Testament?
Okay, I might have stolen this from Ivor Myers.
I think I've seen a sermon on this.
I might have stolen some of this from Ivor Myers, but nevertheless, I think he's got a good point.
Yeah, and people should watch that sermon. It's phenomenal. We'll link that in the comments.
Okay, so the Christian nationalists, what are they doing? Let's look at Joel Webben here on Nehemiah.
And we see again and again and again the sovereign rights of nations to police their borders, defend their borders. The sojourner, or the stranger that we see in the Old Testament, we do eisegesis, we being, of course, not you and I, but like Gospel Coalition types, will eisegete in their illegal immigrant. That's not actually the word in the Hebrew. It's somebody who entered through the walls legally. This is not a fugitive. This is somebody who legally came into Israel, the nation, and is going to assimilate in their cultures. They're going to be expected to adhere to the Sabbath laws, all these things. Even guys, merchants who want to sell to Israel, who aren't even inside on their land, who are outside the gate. Nehemiah tells them, if you come back on the Sabbath again, I'm going to lay hands on you and beat you guys. You know what I mean? So it's insane.
Lay hands on you and beat you guys.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds real comforting from those Christian nationalists.
Yeah.
We actually had a sermon series about Nehemiah at our local church. And our pastor was putting on kind of a big push basically to talk about Nehemiah. And so like you're saying, James, I think it's kind of poetic that you have on a national level Nehemiah being talked about. And then we also, in our own church, we're having a multi-part series about it. So it's kind of cool.
I can't say this for everybody else's church out there who's watching, but we're very blessed to have the church that we have.
Yeah, we're very blessed.
And I believe the Lord is working in that church.
Yeah.
I think you have the Christian nationalism, you have the false prophet is looking for the actual literal rebuilding of Jerusalem, right? Through this Nehemiah revival. And, if you look what the name, because it's about rebuilding Jerusalem, right? What does Jerusalem mean? It's a name, right? So it has a meaning. It has a meaning in the Bible. And if you find that meaning, you can see what it really is that God wants his people to rebuild in the end. And as in the natural, so in the spiritual. As in the type, it will also be in the antitype. And the antitype to this, the Jerusalem that's being rebuilt, Jerusalem in Zechariah 8:3 is referred to as the city of truth. God wants the revival to be the rebuilding of the truth. You're talking about repairing the breach, and you're talking about the Sabbath. You're talking about all these things is spiritually what is taking place in the remnant movement, in the revival, and then the last message to the world is to be that light, to be that truth again in this world. And that's where we need to focus and get ready for. But you can see the counterfeit is out there, and they're all looking for something to be, red heifer to be sacrificed and all sorts of other things. And they're not looking at what this is really about. So you're talking about reading the Bible through in 7 days, but are you going to stop to do run to and fro and compare Scripture with Scripture and a line here with a line there and go back and forth to actually see what it means? Or are you just going to read it through like you're mowing the lawn?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very true.
Though it's interesting that they're talking about Israel here, because I know the big focus from evangelical America is the view that Israel is literal Israel, a geographical location on the map.
They have a major role in final prophecy, final prophetic events.
Yeah, that's what they believe. And so, we are recording this on Sunday. This is Sunday, March 1st, when this recording is happening. And, as we do more of these Sunday law updates, I feel like we're going to have to say what day we're recording it more often, because there's so much news coming so quick that it's hard to keep up with it all. So that's why I'm saying we're recording this March 1st. But what happened yesterday morning, on Sabbath morning for us, was something monumental. You had a joint strike between the United States and Israel against Iran.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime.
And we then had the confirmation that the supreme leader was killed as a result of that strike. And you've also had retaliation from Iran.
It's interesting, too, even before that, you had this buildup and you had these negotiations that were going, and you had this formation of the Board of Peace.
Yeah,
what does the Bible say? Peace, peace, then sudden destruction come. Right? So you have this president who campaigned as the president of peace. he's forming this board of peace.
Yeah.
And then you have obviously this war that erupts. But even go ahead.
Well, and who was invited on that board of peace? The Vatican.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
Now they didn't accept, but they were invited.
Yeah. But it's interesting too, and what do you think about this, Alex, as far as did you follow the Anthropic, the whole AI saga that was going on with the Hegseth and the Department of War?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So you had Anthropic basically say, no, we're not going to allow you to use our technology for autonomous strikes with no human input.
So two things, that which is huge,
yeah.
but then also mass surveillance of American citizens.
Right.
That's where they put their foot down, and Hegseth said that's unacceptable.
Oh, yeah, I saw his tweet, actually, where he was basically decrying Anthropic, saying that it was the worst thing ever. And so was Donald Trump on Twitter. Right. And so you had this huge decrying of these AI companies and saying, okay, 6 months, we're not going to be using Anthropic.
Right.
And we're actually, and if you looked at what he was trying to do, he's also trying to make it more difficult for Anthropic to be used by anybody else.
Yeah, I put them on I forget the name of the list, but that deadline was, I believe, 6 o'clock on Friday night, and then they strike Iran in a few hours.
No, it's just coincidence.
Total coincidence.
Yeah, it's just coincidence.
I don't know. What do you think about all that, Andrew?
Well, it's probably going to end up being Grok then, I guess. I don't know. I think that, these protests that are taking place, the great controversy says there's going to be people in certain positions, politicians perhaps, that will actually hold back a whole bunch of evil just because they're standing on principle for a while, and God has his people placed in certain, we don't know who those people will be. But I think that it's a foreshadowing of what they really want to do and what's really coming. And when you take the mass surveillance that Edward Snowden sort of blew the whistle on,
right,
and you connect that with AI, I mean, it's Palantir really. I think the amazing targeting that's taking place, not just with the ICE operations, but also just what's happening in the Middle East, and they're finding. I mean, it's Palantir. It's that technology that's being used to basically, with laser precision, find exactly who it is you're trying to find and track them and be able to do whatever you want with them. And so we're seeing the system, the no buy, no sell system.
Yes.
The structure of it is beginning to really manifest itself in our culture and in our society. Not just culture. We're beginning to accept it.
Right.
We're going to start seeing that this is actually an okay way to live with AI and with all these things thinking for us, and we don't realize that we're slowly there's a noose being put around our neck and a trapdoor underneath our feet, that if we disagree with any of this, we vary from anything, they're just going to pull the door and that's it. I mean, Maranatha says that the laws are going to become so strict and so coercive, so seemingly like no escape from this law. And if you do break this, you will lose everything. It will become so harsh, and that no one will even venture to dare to go against the law, or to go against what their conscience, or to go against their conscience. That's where we're kind of headed.
I agree, and we have to be ready before we get there. But this whole Iran-Israel conflict, Andrew, you and Matthew Shanshay have done episodes actually talking about Israel and basically showing the roots of Israel as a nation, modern day Israel, I should say. And so what kind of takeaways, and this is an open question for everybody, what kind of takeaways do we get from this Iran, Israel, U.S. conflict? Where is this leading us prophetically? Where is it leading us more eminently?
Well, first thing, this is not like some sort of happenstance thing that's going on. This is all very, very scripted and very controlled, and that there are bloodlines and families that are involved in this, and it is the Roman Empire is still ruling. It has never gone away. It's still actually intact, and it's going, but it's in a different form. It still has its religious arm that does not have the temporal power yet, but the machinations of everything behind the scenes through secret societies, through all sorts of organizations. We've shown graphics on our channel where you can see kind of like the structure of how we've shown the evidence that the receipts, if you will, of how the interconnected these people are and how they're all related to each other and how they work. It's just kind of right there in front of your face. Where's it all going? Well, I mean, the Club of Rome. The world has got to be brought to a place where it's all going to get together so that the 10 kings can rule for 1 hour with the beast at the end. So that's where we're headed. So, look at Rome. I mean, or I should say, look at the United States. If you study early Rome and how Rome came up slowly, over time. What was really behind its growth? It was focusing on economy. It was focusing on trade. It was focusing all these things that the U.S. is the great protector of free trade in the world. It's the same thing as the Roman Empire. Nothing's changed. Nothing's new under the sun. If it says that it's going to exercise all the power of the first beast, and it's going to bring about a Sunday law, it's going to bring about some sort of a system that the entire world is going to agree to, that means that you're going to continue to see things like this take place with Iran, as we saw with Venezuela, with Maduro. There's something going on that no one is talking about that much with Cuba right now. All of these, and through this process, they're actually affecting China and they're affecting Russia as well, because they're all kind of connected. You have the BRICS nations. So I was just looking at Polymarket earlier. I was thinking, do you think that anyone's got a king of the north, king of the south thing on Polymarket? Like which one's going to make it?
Yeah.
Because we know that the king of the north, brings the king of the south to heel. That is what we are seeing 100%. So earlier you mentioned about prophecy, and this is something that's worth repeating, is that prophecy is not given to us so that we know every little thing before it happened. It's actually so that when things do happen, we will remember what God has said and we will know what to prepare for, and that we can trust him. So we see this thing taking place with Iran, seeing these wars launching and going off. We can know that what's happening are these final movements that are becoming rapid, that is shaping the world to accept the mark of the beast, to accept a false Messiah to come. All of these things are connected. UAPs, everything we've been talking about, it's all one big ball of wax.
Yeah.
And Iran, this thing right now with Iran is very significant, because I think, this is the wars and the rumors of wars, and you have other things that are going to follow very quickly. The very next thing that comes up is the persecution of God's people.
Yeah. Well, you also have this quote by Ellen White where she says here, in India, China, Russia, and the cities of America, thousands of men and women are dying of starvation. The moneyed men, because they have the power, control the market. They purchase at low rates all they can obtain and then sell at greatly increased prices. This means starvation to the poorer classes and will result in a civil war. Now, mind you, she wrote this in 1899, so this is after the first Civil War. So she's talking about a coming future civil war. There will be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. Michael, you and I were actually talking kind of about this quote and the concept that, war is going to come, but then there's going to be food shortages and there's going to be financial insecurity. What is that verse? I'm actually drawing a little bit of a blank right now. It says that they took their gold and it was cankered. But, when we look at that verse, gold doesn't canker. Gold doesn't go bad. Like, gold does not go bad. So it clearly must be that it loses its value.
Yeah.
The financial system loses its value.
Right.
Isaiah 2:20.
Isaiah 2:20. What does it say?
In that day, this is speaking of the day of the Lord, in that day a man shall cast his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made, each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats.
I think it's also worth mentioning that there are some that are trying to depend on precious metals to get through some of this time. You have to realize that everything is going to be tokenized on a blockchain.
Yeah.
So you can have those things, but unless you're participating in that blockchain,
which they can have absolute control over.
Yeah, it'll become worthless or illegal.
Yeah.
I was thinking about these things the other day, and I was just wondering, is there a point in time in Earth's history, in Earth's final days, that gold will actually fail? And I realized that, if we read Matthew 24, Jesus says there'll be wars and rumors of wars. Don't be afraid of these things. These things must come to pass. It's not the end yet. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Then there'll be what? Next thing? Famine, right?
Yep.
And so in this context, at the end of the world, these things are going to be the worst that we've ever seen. We'll never see them as bad as this forever and ever until
and even our imagination of them doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, it's impossible. So that tells me that, you cannot buy a piece of food from somebody with a piece of gold if that person is starving themselves and they also don't have gold. You cannot buy food with gold and you cannot eat gold. It will fail.
Yes.
Gold and the gold and the silver will fail.
Yep.
Eventually.
Anything that you try to do of yourself will fail.
Yeah.
It's only through your reliance on Christ.
Yeah.
It'll be like Elijah with being fed by ravens.
Exactly.
I think what we can see with all these things we're talking about, they're very scary. I mean, let's face it. I mean, these are the kind of the end of the world things that we know that are coming. But, you know, these things are beyond our control. They're all in God's hands. And God has given us a map and a timeline of these kinds of things. Not a timeline as far as dates go, but as far as sequence of events. So we know that when we see these things, know that your redemption draws nigh. You know, you can look up and see him coming. So we know that we need to be ready. And I think the individual experience that we need, looking at the world out there, the global situations, can be very frightening. But the comfort that we have is to experience a direct and personal relationship with Christ, and to experience what righteousness by faith is really about. And that's where our peace will be in the storm. That's where our rock is. And that's how we're prepared to be ready to go in when the loud cry, the midnight cry comes. And that's the danger that we're all in. And looking at all these things taking place, if we don't actually turn that into an experience where we're truly ready for the judgment, where we're truly ready to, you know, to walk in these last days.
And we have all these types in the Bible too. I mean, we have, you know, before the flood, Noah, the door was sealed by Christ himself, and his family was shut into the ark and was saved through the flood. Even with the story of Esther, you know, you have the death decree against her people. Did any of them die?
No.
No. And actually it was Haman, who is a type of Lucifer or Satan, who was right hung by the noose that he had intended for Mordecai's neck. Right. Who was a type of Christ.
Yeah.
So we should take comfort, like Andrew said, in Christ and our relationship with him. We're not supposed to be afraid.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I also think about what this means, though, if we know all this stuff is going to be happening. I think that there's never been a better time to follow the counsel that we do have from Spirit of Prophecy about how to live, which means country living, which means having practical preparedness, not being a full-on prepper where you're stashing 55-gallon barrels of food and, you know, having a stockpile of guns and ammo and think you're going to shoot your way out of it or something, but having realistic preparedness that's going to help. And so actually, that's something I've been thinking about creating as a little presentation where we talk about, you know, some practical steps like walking people through maybe some solar. I've had a bit of experience in solar, talking about food preservation, talking about gardening. I have a lot of pictures about greenhouses and different ways that you can grow. Michael, you've done a lot of research into hydroponics before, talking about where to buy property, where we should go. So if that interests you, drop a comment down below if that kind of discussion would be of use to you in this preparedness, because I think that would be a lot of fun to talk about.
So speaking of preparedness, one way that we want to show our audience how you can prepare to give the loud cry, we have, of course, we've talked about some upcoming events, and one of those being the National Mall event, May 17th. Alex, can you put this up on the screen here? Okay, so one of the ways that you can be involved is we are doing a Great Controversy distribution project. Now, for those of you who are new to the channel, we did this last year. We ran into Charlie Kirk, actually, back at Trump's inauguration. We went with a group that there was probably about 150 people that went total. There was about 10,000 books that were passed out. This time, praise God, we have heard online that there's going to be a lot more people going this time around. We've had a lot of Adventists that have pledged their support that are going to come to this event. And it's not just this one. There's Turning Point events. There's the July 4th event for the 250 celebration. But the way that we are getting people involved is you can bring a large tote bag, backpack, small wagons. There's going to be some organizers there that have arranged around 40,000 books to be stashed in a staging area there on the National Mall. They're working with the Capitol Park Service. And you can bring your wagon, stock up, and join us in going and passing them out to the crowd. In the past, we have had great success in getting the books out to many people, and it is an opportunity to highlight the importance of the Great Controversy. And we're focusing specifically on that book because, you know, when I read the 1888 materials, one of the things that I see is Ellen White was often very sad about how little attention was paid to the Great Controversy. At this point of the loud cry, we are giving that book out so that the focus, the spotlight can be upon that book. So bring your church friends, bring your church group, You're going to have to be responsible for your own transportation and lodging. We recommend that you have your local people, established leaders, and organize at least the getting there and where to stay on your own, because we do not have the capacity to do all of that for everybody out there. But bring your tote bag. We will be showing where the locations are going to be to meet up and load up on Great Controversies. You can also get involved by getting copies of the Great Controversy sharing card. We've featured those on this channel here before. Please get more copies of those. There was 50,000 of them that have evaporated, and now I think over 100,000 are back in stock now. And so please get your copy of those, load up so that you have stuff to pass out in your local community as well. But going to these events and working the cities, running into your fellow believers there, it's a great opportunity to practice and to share that loud cry, because now's the time to give it.
And if people want to help support us with this venture, actually, if you go to heritageandhope.org/donate, or you can mail us a check to P.O. Box 77, Collegedale, Tennessee, you can help support us, because we will be up there trying to help pass out those Great Controversies on May 17 on the National Mall. And we're hoping to bring a couple cameras with us and actually get some footage of that event if we can. So I'm really looking forward to that. In addition to that, we are going to be going to other events as well. We have an event down in Florida that is upcoming. And then we also have, we're planning on going to, we're planning on going to ASI, actually, in the end of the summer. And in addition to that, we're also planning an event in April, at the beginning of April, which is coming up very soon. And we'll go ahead and play a brief little trailer of what that is going to look like now.
Wars without end, assassination attempts, witchcraft is destroying our children, families torn apart, rampant atheism, a country that once called itself
One nation under God.
barely recognizable.
We have to bring back our religion. We have to bring back Christianity in this country.
I'd like to see the town be a Christian town. I'd like to see the state be a Christian state. I'd like to see the nation be a Christian nation. I'd like to see the world be a Christian world.
That's why we get called. Well, you're a Christian nationalist. You want the kingdom to be the government. Yes. You want God to come and overtake the government. Yes.
There are people alive today who remember what it was like to live in a country that observed the Sabbath.
I mean, the left would if they could look at the law books from the founding of our nation, they would say, well, that's a Christian dictatorship.
Will God save America? Come find out April 3rd and 4th, 2026. Register today on willgodsaveamerica.com.
So if you want to help us get involved with passing out the Great Controversy, we would encourage you to come and also stay subscribed to this channel so that you can stay up to date, because we're going to have further announcements as we draw closer to May 17. The other thing to highlight with this project, May 17, is that there's still more details to come. We're hopeful that we can actually partner with some other ministries as well. But thank you guys so much for joining us here on this channel and for this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on what is going on, because we've got a lot of exciting video coming. And also don't forget to check out Andrew Bakitschke's website, sanctuarydoorministry.com.